subsidies that go to corporations that shouldn't get them, I'm out.
Joining us now is Michael Hardaway, former communications director and spokesman for Congressman and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and Arshi Siddiqui, former Senate aide to senior aide to Senior House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and the founder and CEO of Bellwether Government Affairs. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Arshi, I want to start with you. So the montage we just saw of complaints about the bill from those who voted against it was from people who thought the cuts were not deep enough. On the other hand, there are plenty of swing district Republicans who are very worried that the cuts, particularly to Medicaid, are too deep and will hurt their constituents and thus hurt the lawmakers in the next election. Who wins in this battle where they seem to want opposite objectives?
No, I think it's a great question, and threading this needle is, I think, a major part of any significant piece of legislation. So when you are looking at these types of legislation, you have to thread that needle. And the stakes are really high for Republicans. We're 4 months into unified Republican control. The driving issue of the 2024 elections were the cost of living. And you look at what has happened in Washington because of recent policies, and it's been economic and chaotic uncertainty across the board, whether it's tariffs. So the cost of living issue is getting worse, not better. So from my perspective, I think they are trying to thread the needle, and they will get there. And some of it will be through changes to Medicaid. Some of it will be across the board. They have a lot of tools at their disposal, but they are moving in a more aggressive direction on the Medicaid piece. They will get a pound of flesh here.
Does the fact that they've scheduled, though, a 10 p.m., I think, meeting for Sunday night, does that project confidence that they're going to get this work done? Does it mean they're actually hoping some of these holdouts just simply won't show up because it's so late on a Sunday evening? What does that tell you about where they are in the debate?
I think it shows urgency. I think they know this bill is critical to their economic agenda, and they need to move forward for the midterms. So they will use every tool at their disposal to get these votes. And that will be late nights, that will be multiple votes, that will be potentially going into the Memorial Day recess. And that'll be using their biggest tool in their whipping operation, Donald Trump.
Michael, what do you think the Democrats do here? I mean, the margins are so slim for them. They really don't have much at blocking this. But could there be enough of a rift among some of these Democrats, certainly the ideological ones who don't want to see Medicaid cut because it will hurt them either politically and hurt their constituents? Could they appeal to them to join their ranks and stay disciplined in blocking this?
Medicaid is wildly popular. 97% of Americans say that they're directly affected by Medicaid or they know someone who is. And so Democrats have been doing the right thing, which is holding these daily, weekly Medicaid events in districts around the country. And that's the smart thing to do. That will continue. And I think for Democrats, this is a winning issue. We should drill down on this so this can help us take back the majority in the midterm elections.
Off camera, when we were talking and our excitement about this topic, both of you seem to think that this will eventually be resolved. What are the concessions that the 4 holdout Republicans, maybe 5, depending on how you look at it, are going to need to have satisfied? And where's the compromise room? Where are those open issues that you mentioned?
You know, Chip Roy has a point. I never thought I would say this. The national debt in America is $36 trillion. Last year, we spent $1.1 trillion on interest alone. So what does that mean? We should have a bipartisan conversation about really addressing this. And again, if we're talking about wasted money and cuts, we're wasting $1.1 trillion a year in interest payments. So I think that could be a part of it in terms of this larger conversation and plan as to how we attack this $36 trillion plus in debt.
Well, what does that even mean, though? I mean, it's not like they can negotiate down interest rates.
No, it's true. But the point is a larger conversation about spending that pares that down. And remember, this is $36 trillion plus whatever this tax cut costs us, in addition to everything else. And so that number is growing. If we can have a larger conversation about priorities and spending, I think that could be something that Chip Roy would be amenable to. Because the other thing is our defense budget is $1 trillion as well. I'm sure there's much waste there. And so I think a larger conversation could be had.
But Archie, who do you think ideologically wins between the rift of those who want to cut Medicaid spending and those who want to actually pass the tax cuts sooner? Who do you think is going to win out of that Republican divide right now?
Well, I think to talk a little bit about the deficit piece, this bill adds $5 trillion to the deficit. So there are places where they can actually change the bill that addresses the deficit question. So to your point on Medicaid, the real question is that are these Republicans focused more on the deficit, which will have outside impact on the economy, on borrowing costs across the board, and they could restructure the package? Or are they more focused on cutting programs, which we have seen a running trend with the Republican majority on cutting programs? So I think that is the piece. And you could find bipartisan support in right-sizing this package. You could give tax cuts to 98% of all Americans, and that would cost a fraction of what this package costs.
Well, so to clarify, the $5 trillion number is the cost of the tax cuts without the offsets. It's lower if you include the offsets. I say offsets as if it's some technical abstract thing, but it means people lose their food assistance, they lose their Medicaid. So the question is, if you really wanted to reduce the size of the hole this is going to blow in the budget, you would either have fewer tax cuts, as you point out, which Republicans don't seem on board with. The only thing that unites them besides Donald Trump is the hero, is they want to cut taxes, or you could increase spending cuts, which, again, it's really not clear to me how this is resolved, not only because there's division in the House, but because there is division in the Senate. You have people like Josh Hawley, who's a Republican, saying, please don't cut Medicaid. So I just don't you say they can thread the needle, but these things seem fundamentally in opposition.
Well, Michael, actually, then a question for you is, part of the Republican argument for these cuts, right, is we're getting people like single men who don't deserve to be on Medicaid off of it, and all of this is actually going to preserve the program so that it does what it's supposed to do for elderly, disabled people, women, and children who really do deserve this money. That's part of their sort of message, their argument to voters. Do you think people are buying that, agreeing with that?
No, it's a red herring. It's what they do well, which is it's just like the USA aide conversation. You find one small egregious thing and you make that the story. So there may be a handful of single men that are on this, but the larger story is not that. The larger story is the rural hospitals, the old ladies, the seniors who rely on Medicaid.
Do you think they'll toughen up on the tax cuts at all and do you think Republicans give at all on that? The SALT caucus, I feel like they're just not going to be that successful in saving that tax cut for, the New England.
Well, let me ask you, can I just ask you from a Republican point, what's more popular, tax cuts or deficit? Because that's what this is really about, right? And so if you're a politician, do you think tax cuts are more important?
I think absolutely tax cuts, because that is what the big donors are gunning for. And at the end of the day, they have to answer the phone calls from everyone that they're on the phone with, constantly fundraising.
Are you suggesting they care more about the donors than the voters?
Ooh, wow, wow.
Well, I mean, a lot of their voters would care about not having their taxes increased as well.
Yeah.
So one piece of this that I might potentially disagree with you on the SALT caucus thing specifically is that if the tax code is allowed to stay as it is and Congress does absolutely nothing, a lot of the constituents and donors in these SALT caucus guys' districts would actually be better off. Like the rich people in New York, their taxes are going to go down if Congress does nothing. And Republicans have such a slim margin that actually I think the SALT caucus guys have a little bit more leverage that they've been given credit for if they're willing to defy Donald Trump.
All right, well, I guess we'll see how this plays out.
Okay, Michael Hardaway, Arshi Siddiqui, thanks so much for being with us. And just for the sake of the country, let's hope there's a compromise and Congress actually functions. So we've got more to cover, including what Trump's big, beautiful bill could cost you. We'll speak with Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy about that and more very soon.
Let's go hear from more citizens of the law.
Happy grass, happy home.
So what do you do?
Regular feeding, it makes all the difference. Scott's Weed and Feed. The product is incredible.
Now's the time to kill existing weeds with Turf Builder Weed and Feed.
Feed your lawn. Feed it. Ooh, saucy. Hot. Don't you just love that you can take it all home?
How'd you like to take me home?
After all these years, still spicy.
Come on, let's weigh and pay and go home, cowboy.
Rinse it up.
Every now and